Hi everyone, my name is Megan Lacey. I'm one of two information literacy librarians at Gutman, and I just want to share in this video a couple things. One is just to introduce myself because I want you to know that I am available if you need help with your research for this class or any class. We can make a Zoom appointment. I typically meet with students for 30 minutes. It's my pleasure. You're not bugging me. So I just want you to know there is a flesh and blood person here. But if you want to get started on your own, I also want to just give you some strategies about how to think about this assignment. So I'm going to use as an example the narrative of that I constantly heard growing up in a rural area in Washington state that immigrants are taking our jobs. So your goal in this assignment is to try and find information to counter this narrative. So I think a lot of you will probably start with Google. And let's say I did this search, immigrants taking jobs, USA. I get some results. Now, how do you know which ones you can trust? Why is it okay to use one article and not another? So that's what I want to give you some guidance on. I do have this handout that I will link to after the video, but these are the criteria that I think you should be thinking about whenever you encounter information, not just for class, just always. Sometimes this criteria matters more times than others. So sometimes one aspect will be more important than others. But it's the mnemonic is cardio, so kind of think of it as an exercise for your brain. And the first criteria is currency. So obviously, for this question, currency is important. I'm not interested in immigrants taking jobs in the 1950s. I'm interested in immigrants taking the jobs right now. So I want an article that's going to be up to date. So let's say I pick up this link because it sounds exactly like what I'm looking for. I'm trying to see if they're stealing our jobs. Um, okay. And I end up on this site, the Brookings Institute. I don't see, oh, here's the author. Here's when it was published, 2017, so not too old. So, okay, so far so good. What else should I think about? Authority. So by authority, I mean, who is the author? Why should I trust them? I don't know anything about Brennan Hobbin. I could go Google him. Um, but authority, you should also be thinking about the where the article is being published, where it comes from, the source. And I don't know anything about the Brookings Institute, so I should be looking for the About page. So I'm going to click on that and see what is the Brookings Institute. And I find out it's a nonprofit public policy organization based in Washington, and their job is to conduct in-depth research that leads to new ideas for solving problems. Well, that sounds great, but should it's just still not answering my question. Should I believe them? And what you should be looking for is when I'm trying to model for you is it a nonpartisan organization or do they have a bias? Are they trying to argue for a certain kind of policy? This isn't an easy question. But it is your job because there is so much information in the world to kind of do some digging to find out. And if you were to read through all of this, you would see that yes, they do aim to be nonpartisan. If you were still unsure, what I would recommend doing is looking in a trusted news source like the New York Times or NPR and seeing if they've gotten any bad press, if your institute, because there are many policy institutes or think tanks that are biased towards one, either the conservatives or the liberals. So you're trying to find one that is more centrist, that's not trying to push an agenda, but rather conduct independent research, meaning independent of government, to help create policies that benefit people. So, okay, I might be okay with the authority of this source. What else should I consider? Relevancy. Well, we've already saw in the title that this is very relevant. It's helping me find something that's, or it's providing information that counters the dominant narrative that immigrants are taking our jobs. Documentation. Do they cite where they're getting their information? Well, they do provide citations to where they're getting their data. That makes me feel better. I could go to the US Border Control website and double check that this data is actually there and that they're documenting it correctly. So that makes me feel a little better. They say, there's links in here to other articles that they're referring to as their evidence. So I could go back and check that information. That's a good sign. What kind of information is it? Well, as I've pointed out, this isn't an article from a newspaper. It's from a think tank. So these are people who are trying to influence policy. So I have to keep that in mind. They are going to have a bias in that way. And that's also what I'm getting at by objectivity. So if they're pushing a certain agenda, that means it's not very objective. If they're really trying hard to say, oh, immigrants aren't taking our jobs and they're not providing any evidence of that, that's scary. That's not a good sign that that's a well-researched article. But if they are providing evidence, as I'm seeing they are, then, and they're showing where they're getting it, the U.S. Census, which is also nonpartisan. So this is making me think, yeah, I could use this article. So this video is getting very long. I just wanted to walk you through some things that you should think about when you're doing this research project, and also just, again, to point you to somebody who can help you find articles if you're not finding things, or you're not sure that it's a reliable source or something appropriate for an academic context, who you can talk to.